Alright, now we're cooking with gas. This episode of The Strain saw probably the most progress thus far in terms of really getting us toward that vampire plague that the show keeps promising. I mean, not only are the main protagonists starting to fight for their lives against these creatures, these parasites who have taken over human bodies like shells, but also just in terms of many of the allegiances and many of the character interactions, lines seem to be forming in the sand, as it were. I mean, the plot of this episode is basically the main characters are really starting to grasp the gravity of what exactly they are dealing with. I mean, this is not any ordinary plague, um, and they really start to come over to David Bradley's side, as it were, or at least Dr. Goodweather does. So I actually thought this was a very strong episode with some exceptions because the acting again is pretty good all around. I mean, Corey Stoll, David Bradley, Mia Maestro, Sean Astin, all of these guys are still doing a pretty good job. I can't really fault this show on the acting, which I guess that is one of the preliminary steps. I mean, if your show is not well acted, then what's the point? um, yeah, they're coupled with the fact that they're having more to work with, more juicy material to work with this time around than just kind of speculative material. Then I think that really strengthens their performance. The fact that they're really getting some clear idea of the gravity of their situation rather than just trying to come up with some kind of logical scenario or logical excuse for whatever's going on, like they were the first few episodes. So right away, some of the strongest episodes, or some of the strongest moments of this episode, came when Dr. Goodweather's team actually left him, or he actually lost his team because Sean Astin's character, Jim Kent, actually revealed his parts in the triggering of this plague, of this pandemic. I mean, he revealed, I let this van go. It was just soil. I mean, they targeted me. They knew all about me. They knew about my wife. I was already in debt, so I had no choice. I mean, wouldn't you do the same? So yeah, that's a good point, and that's a point that Mia Maestro actually brings up. Imagine, what would you do? What would you be willing to do for someone you loved? So, so that scene was pretty powerful, honestly. I mean, very well acted by all three of them. Another really good scene came toward the end of the episode when Corey Stoll and Mia Maestro were attacked by the little girl who came back to her daddy and subsequently turned him into another vampire. And David Bradley came and chopped off the vampires' heads. Excuse me. And Mia Maestro and Stoll get into this very heated argument. This goes beyond us. I mean, we can't just go around killing people. We can't just go around decapitating people and exterminating our patients like this. I mean, no matter the severity of the plague, we can't do this. I mean, it is completely unethical. And Corey Stoll is kind of saying, this is our job. These people are far beyond our help. This is our job to eliminate these epidemics, these pandemics, before they seriously affect all these innocent people. I mean, these creatures, they're not people anymore. They are creatures who are targeting innocent people, and it is our job to stop them. So both of them bring up some legitimate points, and her actually leaving him at the end, I thought felt really earned. I mean, all in all, this was a pretty strong episode, not just in terms of some of the character interactions, but in terms of some of the in terms of some of the ramping up of the story. I mean, we're really starting to cook with gas now. Um, and the more I see of this show, the more I can appreciate, in retrospect, the desire to set up this world, to set up these characters before actually proceeding into the play, one or two episodes in. I mean, it's very slow, it's very methodical. And one thing I've noticed about this show is that while it's not exactly the most realistic show on the planet, in terms of the writing and whatnot, and obviously in terms of the subject material. Think of it this way: it's kind of like reality, what would actually happen, but injected with a little bit of Guillermo del Toro's signature gleeful gore and kind of dark humor. I mean, just injected with a little bit of Guillermo del Toro-esque glee about it, which, given who is responsible for this, is pretty fitting. I mean, it's just a tad above the normal the normal realms of realism, and it's just a little bit on the demented side. And speaking of that, maybe it's just my inner little boy wanting to see some gross out material, but the scene where they were actually dissecting one of the vampires, I actually found really fascinating. It's not for the faint of heart, I'll tell you that. I mean, the gore itself, the body when they were slicing it open, it looked pretty legit. I can't fault this show on its effects either. But actually getting a much clearer picture, again, one of the strengths of this episode, getting a much clearer picture of what the anatomy of these things are, and just how fresh Guillermo del Toro is making, and Chuck Hogan. I don't mean to discredit Chuck Hogan in this, but how original this show and before this the novel are making the concept of vampires. This is one of the things I had a problem with in Twilight, is that there's only so much you can change about a supernatural creature before it becomes completely unrecognizable. I mean, I can appreciate they need to update the image, but what they did in Twilight, they just completely, for lack of a better term, emasculated the concept of vampires, just made them so stupid. Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan's vampires, they are obviously an update of the image from the classic Dracula archetype, but at the same time they still maintain the core of vampirism, where it slowly spreads like this plague. It's initiated through some form of contact, and having these worms enter the bodies like parasites, and having them essentially rewrite human anatomy and form this completely new system of organs, I actually found very fascinating. Again, maybe it's just my inner little boy, but once again, I have to commend this show for making the concept of vampires relatively fresh, in a world where so many things are just completely unoriginal. Only two moments in this episode I thought really took me out of the experience. One was when the evil businessmen, like Richard Sammel and Eldritch, they recruited this blonde British chick to single-handedly take down the internet and basically make the entire city go dark. Okay. First of all, you expect me to believe that one person could make an entire city go dark? That she has the capability to shut down all of these devices single-handedly and in relatively little time. I just thought that was a little hard to swallow, even in comparison to a lot of other things on this show that are quote-unquote out there. Again, like the concept of vampires. I can buy vampires, I just can't buy this this chick can do what she says, actually succeed in doing what she said for these evil kind of hammy businessmen who for some reason want the internet down and all of these networks down, blah blah blah. So that was pretty hard to swallow. And another moment that I thought was a little too far into the realm of goofy was when Ansel, one of the four surviving victims from the plane, when he actually locked himself in the shed, and his wife was coming to check on him, and if they had just left the scene alone like this, where he locks himself on a chain and tells his wife, get out of here, it's not safe, go, never come back, just leave me here, lock the door, blah blah blah. If they had just left it like that, I actually thought it would have been a very well done subplot. But in my opinion, they ruined it with unintentional comedy. Or maybe it was intentional, but I just thought, again, it went a little too far. In that the stereotypical jerky neighbor, he comes over and says, your freaking dog is making all that noise in the shed. I mean, it's a horrible thing not to discipline your dog. Blah, blah, blah. I mean, you can basically write this type of character in your sleep. So the wife, even after having been completely distraught over not only the death of her dog, but also the slow degradation of her husband's health, even after all that, and even after supposedly being a fiercely religious woman, she says, oh, well, the dog is currently in the shed. So I was wondering if you could go in the shed and show him who's boss, because I just don't have the heart for it. And then he was like, yeah, I'll do that. And he takes off his belt and is about to go teach that dog a lesson. And as they are opening the door, she pushes him in and locks the door. And you hear him getting eaten, and you see blood dripping out of the cracks in the doors. And I'm like, okay, that's a little too cartoonish. That's straight out of Bugs Bunny right there. I mean, that's like Bugs Bunny tricking Elmer Fudd. So aside from those two moments, I did think this was a very strong episode. Again, those two scenes / subplots did kind of take me out of it, but I think they were mostly counterbalanced with some of the stronger dramatic scenes, like again the stuff involving F and his team, and again the growing clarity as to what exactly they are dealing with. So yeah, as always, looking forward to the next one, and hopefully we will see even more advancement the next time around. Now that F is finally coming around to seeing David Bradley's point of view, and maybe they can actually start killing some vampires.